Okay. Now I would just like to make this bit of a documentary or movie or whatever, because this is the end of an era. Something like this has been used for thousands of years, and this is the end of an era. And I have 5 implements here, and I like to demonstrate them all. But this is actually from North Germany and North Holland. It is mostly used on lodging grain. And the advantage of this thing is it's called a Sicht, but you can make bundles right away. You don't have to have somebody behind you pulling taking the grain out, so you can make bundles.
Go.
Well, with this, you make bundles right away, and what you do, you cut in 6 times, depends how heavy the grain is, or and then you roll out 6 times, and then the bundle should be done.
Oh, that's hard on their arms.
Now with one of these, you can do about an acre a day if you start early enough. And but with fertilizer, it'd be hard to do. But without fertilizer in the olden days, that was a norm for a day. Was 1 acre. Now I'm going to tie a few bundles here. Huh. Now you can tie about 2 acres a day like this. It took 2 guys with a sick and 1 woman to do 2 acres a day. Huh. Now this is stooking here. See, in barley stooking is different than oat stooking or barley we only made 6 to a stook. Huh.
Oh.
Well, this is a cradle size. It was used a lot in this country. It has a cradle on here which gathers up the grain. But this is kind of a recreated homemade thing, and these don't line up. And this comes out of the museum, and I'm going to sharpen it right now. This is a But this is actually for very thin crops.
For very thin crab, yes.
Yeah,
that works really well.
otherwise you couldn't do it.
It's too heavy.
Now this is an American size. This is not European. They have something similar in Europe, but not this extreme. You know, you have to bend down too much, and this is for light grain, and the size blade is very, very long and hard to work with. But since it's in the museum and it was just used here, and it's even in the Grande Prairie history book, there's a picture of somebody using this, and he is grabbing it like this. And so I'm just going to try the best I can here, just to demonstrate a little bit, because the people that can do this, they get fewer and fewer. That's hard work.
That's a hard work.
Now this was a size was used quite recently. This is actually only a size for mowing grass with. The grain size is a little bit different. They were a little bit longer, and they had a kind of a cradle that would catch the grain as it was falling over. But I mean, this is easier to handle. Now, with something like this, you always have to have somebody behind you to take up the grain. Otherwise you can't make another swath.
But actually, this small one does better job than bigger.
Yeah. Now I'm going to cut this off, and then we're going to try another implement with Steve here. There. Okay. We're going to try a different implement out here. This is Steve Evanchuk from Grande Prairie, and he used to live in the Ukraine in the olden days, and he remembers people using one of these. So this will be interesting to see.
Okay, where is start? Here?
Yeah, start right there. Or maybe I should take this away here.
be done.
Oh, that's enough, Steve. There was a woman on Bear Lake in the 1900 and around 10, 15. She cut 4 acres with a little implement like that. And her husband, he worked on the threshing crew, southern Alberta, and when he came home, he poured some water on the field to get a dressing floor, and he dressed it all with a flail, and then he sold it in Claremont for #1 Northern. That's what he told me.
It's clean and bummed.
Nice. Now I'm just going to tie the rest here, and then we're going to stoop this, and then we're going to mow some grass after this.
Here we are, stooking.
So,
All cleaned up. Okay.
Well, I'm going to just demonstrate how to sharpen one of these implements. So you take the blade off. And I'm going to sit down here for a minute. And this is an anvil here, little one. And usually they have one at home in an old log. You got more resistance. But I mean, if you haven't taken it to the field, that's what you do. And these here things on here, they prevent it from going too deep into the ground. Actually, there has to be harder ground, but actually I don't want to. I just want to demonstrate this. You see, what happens is the size, it wears off to a steady strike, and twice a day you have to hammer this out. What happens, you draw out the edge, and as you compress the molecules in the iron or steel, it gets harder. And that's two things. You want to draw out the edge, plus you want to harden the steel. And as you do this, you keep the bottom of this about 1 millimeter. You don't put it right flat down, you keep it 1 millimeter off, and then you kind of hit it slowly and bring out the edge. And this takes about 10 minutes to do the whole thing. But in the olden days, they told me, I don't know, you see, first of all, that the edge gets white after a while. You can see the edge, like the edge of this hammer, you can see the edge of the metal. But what you have to make sure that when you're done, that this is a straight line and it is black in the mouth. So you don't see any white here anymore, you see. And then in the olden days, they said you have to run your thumbnail over it, underneath it, and this has to bend over the thumbnail. That's how thin it has to be. But I was never that good because I just come in on the tail end. This was mostly done. They quit this about 1950, 55, and from then on, these were obsolete. And so, but I mean, there is 1,000 years or more tradition here And the only thing similar to this one implement is in Wales, in the Cardiff, in the Folk Museum. There's something similar to this, but not exactly like it. But anyway, this is, I just want to demonstrate this, that's all.
Hey, go ahead, Dad.
Well, I have two different implements here. Again, actually it was the same one as I used over there. But here is the forerunner of this. This comes from Austria, and I bought that in Oregon at the farmer's market one time. And this is what they call a sickle. Hammer and sickle from Russia. You know the sign? And this is the size, actually, for mowing grass. And you can also mow an acre of grass with this thing. But I'm going to just demonstrate this a little bit. Usually people use this when they had some rabbits or goat or something, when you need a little bit. There, this is a sickle type of thing. Now I'm going to use my size here, which is a little faster. And this is the end of an era, because I tried the other day to buy one of these here stones, and there's none to be had in Grande Prairie, because those weed eaters, they took over now, and that made the size obsolete. Well, I just want to show this, that's all.
Go back to the swat, to the same swat.
Oh, back into it, eh?
Right.
Okay.
For hay, that's good. Right.
That's good. Well, so much for the demonstration, and I always meant to do this. Well, I did it now, so well, time to go home now.